Yeah, okay. Yeah, I've only been with Veeam for about the last 6 weeks, so I'm really, really new to the company. My background is for a bank in Edinburgh, Royal Bank of Scotland, where I've been there for about 6 years, and I started the VMware team there. And that VMware team grew the estate to probably one of the, I think it was like the 5th largest in the world once I left there. So it was a really, really good learning curve, and I went right away from 2.5 up to ESXi. The time I left, it went up to ESX5, so I just had a bit of experience there with ESX5. So that's my background. I'm going to talk today about backup and replication. Veeam also does a monitoring solution as well, which I'm going to touch upon hopefully if I have enough time. But I think the room's generally quite technical, so I'm going to try and just whiz through a few slides and then do some demos on some of the restore functionality that we've got. Jason touched on file restores and instant VM restores, so powering up the VM straight from the storage. And I'm going to go just the next level where we start doing some more clever tricks and really utilising that VMware virtualization technology. So I'll start here with the what we're currently faced with and kind of where Jason's moved away from. So traditional backups being an agent in each of the servers, and virtual servers being treated like a physical box. So our immediate cost saving there is removing all of those agents, because we're not agent based. We work directly on the APIs of VMware, vSphere, or directly onto the host, and we'll leverage that virtualization technology. So we're leveraging the snapshots. From my experience, we tried to do snapshot management in the bank, and we had absolute hell with it, like lots of snapshots being left, and in the data stores, people leaving them and causing sort of data consumption, and not being able to purge the snapshots because they've been left for so long. So, I mean, you can almost imagine Veeam is like a snapshot management server. You know, we do a clever thing with app snapshot technology, and then that's where we start creating these backup files and being able to restore from them. The other thing that backups generally do these days is that they'll do a file integrity check. So you've got your backup server onto tape or wherever, and you do an integrity check against those files. Fair enough, those files are good, but will that guarantee that the server will power up? And what our technology does is actually gives you a full guarantee of that and a report that those servers have actually powered up. So it even goes in and automatically does that. And I'll get onto that. So typical VMware backup, so other products doing virtualization. Backup code running on the ESXi, it's something we really, really want to steer away from. Storage requirements, something, as Jason was saying there, is the deduplication and compression, and I think he gave some really, really nice examples of there, how little data gets moved across, so really, really good. Limited recovery options, you've got your recoveries, but Veeam takes it one step further, and we start to do some things that people don't necessarily do with their backup solution. So, and I'm going to demo some of these things as well. So, and the guaranteed recovery. So, just a quick overview of the product. We've got the backup where we offer the 100% reliability, which I've just talked about. And that's offering inline, deduplicated, compressed data. So really just taking over the minimum amount of changes that's happened on a virtual server using the snapshots. We've got our replication technology, and that's a really nice feature because it's an add-on feature to the backup solution. Once you pay for the license for the backup and replication, it's in the product. You don't pay an extra fee for that. So if you want to start experimenting with the DR solution, Veeam does that really, really well, and I'm going to go on to some of the things we do with DR. Fast and flexible recovery. We offer various different types of recovery. We've got the instant VM, which I'm going to explain in just a minute. File level recovery, we touched on that, how that works. We've also got application aware in our recovery, and this is something I'm going to talk about, and whoever doesn't know about this is really, really cool stuff. We've got wizards that can take any object out of Active Directory and restore that directly into the Active Directory in production. Same with SQL, and same with Exchange. And this you'll find when I do the demos, you'll see the fastest type of recovery that you'll see on these types of servers. And just to be clear there, any application that's virtualized, the way we do it can be restored in this manner, and that's called sure backup. So the new things that we've put in version 6 is we've made Veeam horizontally scalable, so scalable for their enterprise. Now beforehand, we had there's 3 modules that you can imagine in Veeam, and that's the backup server where it schedules all the jobs and the metadata of the VMs and that kind of stuff. The proxy server, this is the processing, the crunching power, and that's what we were talking about with Jason's, and that does the deduplication, compression, and starts moving the data across to the repository server. So beforehand, if we had multiple sites, we'd have to put multiple backup servers, meaning multiple servers to manage and multiple environments to manage. So this is something we took as feedback at version 5 and realised this is something the customers want. So now what we do is from one backup server, instead of having 3 like I said, you can distribute these tasks out to Windows boxes. And all you distribute now is a service. It's a Windows service basically. So you put the proxy server across. I kind of imagine this is like 3 different sites potentially. And this repository server being in one site where you've got your tapes as well, where you want to move these files off the tape. So you can go to 3 different branch sites and then across the wire just bring the changes across, deduplicate and compress, and then put them into the one repository server. The other new thing in 6.1, and Jason, this is another thing I would like to look at in your site, is having multiple proxy servers. And what 6.1 does is become a bit more intelligent about distributing the load on the proxies. And it really does look at all of the proxy servers you've got allocated to a job. And what it doesn't do just a round robin algorithm. It'll go through and work out, obviously first if it's down, and this is quite important, how it's best connected. So it'll look at that and go, okay, this is the list of the best servers in the connection order, and then it'll look at the load on those servers and then distribute across the load. So and the intelligence we've got around that is one of our big improvements in 6.1. Okay, this is another example of how we distribute those proxies. Potentially 2 branch sites with a repository server, and all being managed here from the one backup server. I'm not going to sort of dwell on that for too long. vPower, I'm just going to explain this quickly if anybody doesn't know. So you can imagine that the server has been backed up to a repository, and basically I'm going to show you a quick diagram about how we publish an NFS shared directly onto the ESX host and power that virtual server up from its deduplicated, compressed backup file. So it's one of the quickest recoveries that we've seen. This is a quick demo of how it happens. So you have your compressed deduplicated file here, and then it powers up the VM there. And then what we've got is the instant restore technology. So you can imagine you've got your server here, and we lose this server. She's upset. He's fine. He's going to treat it like a fire drill, so he's going to go for a coffee. We lose that server, and then we can power that. We power that server directly up off of the NFS share, and then these changes that constantly happen, these just go into Delta files onto like VMware does with snapshots. And then when you're ready at the end of the day, you can use storage vMotion to migrate that server back into the production environment, and then purge all the changes that happen throughout the day. So this is a technology we've seen a lot of people using. We've seen, Nelson's at the back there, by the way. He's another systems engineer, so I might just refer to him a couple of times. What was the size of the Exchange server? It was 7.
Had a customer who had a 7 terabyte Exchange server, and he was surprised that it only took about 3 to 4 minutes to power up the Exchange server.
Yeah. So you can imagine the benefits you can sort of get from that kind of things. And Carlo was actually, he had a question earlier, and if you have got an Exchange server and you're planning on doing something like this, it's really worth noting. You probably want to sort of invest in a bit like quite fast storage for that, you know, because you're probably going to see a bit of lag there if you've got really cheap storage. So sure back this technology is Veeam's patent pending technology, and we've now adapted this into something called Sure Backup. And the Sure Backup basically takes the servers as a set. So you can imagine Exchange server, AD server, DNS server, and that compiles as a service. And then at the end of that, we power these up in an isolated environment and go through, is the VM working? Does the OS power up? And does the application work? And we've got some custom scripts at the end, and this is something you can customize at the end as well. Run pings, telnets, etc. You know, just to make sure that the service is up as a whole. And then at the end, nice glossy report to the team. So this is a really nice feature, and this is going to lead me on to my next feature, and this is what I'm going to demo. So you can imagine this service, and an example of how we're going to do this is the application item recovery. So once you've got that service up and running, okay, we've done a few tests, and we can go, yeah, great, this powers up. A couple of things on that. In fact, no, I'm going to skip on from there. On-demand sandbox, you can use that as an on-demand sandbox. So when that powers up, you can leave that site up and running and go in there. And this is a kind of a nice feature. If I imagine I've seen it in the past where you've got like maybe 3 or 4 servers as a specific service. You apply a patch, and the patch works against that server, but it breaks other dependencies in the estate. So this is a nice way to say, okay, so the web team, you've got an SQL server here, you've got an IIS server, and you need an AD server for authentication. Stick that up into one of these sandboxes, and you can run your tests, your patches, your custom scripts, and then they can test that it works as a service and all the dependencies work with it. So that's kind of a nice feature, and that's one of the first features. So what happens is, we power these servers up into the isolated network, and we've got a proxy sitting on that we publish onto the ESX host. It's like a Linux app. It's just about 256 meg that sits in memory. And what we do is use IP masquerading to make this network appear on a different network. So this is how we stop this network touching the production network. So it's kind of a cool tool. The proxy will do the communication between the two, and that's how we start being able to do our restores. So we've got a few wizards that I talked about earlier: Exchange, SQL, and Active Directory. And what the wizard will do is have a look at the file in question on the production site, have a look at the file on the isolated network from potentially last night's backup, and do a comparison of the two, and then work out which is different, and take the file that is different from the isolated network or object, and then move it directly and inject it into the production environment. Does that make sense to everybody? So it's a pretty cool feature, and I'll just explain how we have it running and how I foresee it being running in a state. What happens is you run your backup, and at the end of the backup, you power this Sure Backup into the isolated environment, and you can leave that running all day. So then if you need any restores throughout the day, Exchange emails, calendar items, anything, you can take all of these objects out of the Exchange Active Directory. You've got that environment up and ready just to take things out of. And a lot of people say, well, hang on, you're doubling your workload on your ESX hosts. Well, what you've got to remember is these aren't going to be doing a great deal of work. You know, they're just going to be sitting there powered up. There's not going to be any actual disk I/O or network I hitting these. So they're pretty low maintenance when they're sitting up there.
The SQL job kicks off.
Yeah, or a SQL backup. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, is it good? Has it happened to you?
No.
All right. You look like this. Throw a curveball at me there. Okay, so I'm going to do a quick demo of this. Fingers crossed that I get any demo demons. What do you guys want to see? An Active Directory or Exchange, or I could potentially both? AD?
Yeah.
Yeah?